Let's get some facts. 37% of you aren't subscribed to this channel. That's almost 4 out of 10 just freeloading the alpha. So come on, hit subscribe and I promise to keep leveling up the show with the best guests and the juiciest insight. Go on, do it now.
GM, we are at Solana Breakpoint in Abu Dhabi. I'm joined by Mike Cahill from Douro Labs, developers of Pyth Network. Thank you for joining us, Mike.
Thanks for having me. What a great time to be here, and excited to talk to you.
Pleasure. No, it's a really exciting conference, but I gotta ask, why Cauliflower?
Yes. So for those that aren't here, we're doing a cool Cauliflower activation. And it's the creativity of our marketing team to be able to articulate how is it that price quality can change dramatically the perception or the deal that you're going to get in buying something. So they put together some marketing assets, and here we've got this cool Cauliflower bidding activation. So people come in and they come up with guesses for the price of the cauliflower. We run it through an algorithm that's similar to the way that Pyth combines prices together to create a single universal price for any asset at any given time. And people get to very quickly understand. And, you know, we did this video launched, I think, over the weekend, and it was the first time I had members of my family say, "Oh, I think I finally get what it is that you guys do." So cauliflowers in some ways work for certainly some people.
That helps, definitely. So you obviously, recently we're having this conversation in the middle of December 2025. You guys recently announced Pyth Pro, and I know you have a very exciting announcement for this conference as well. So walk us through it.
Yeah, I'd be leaking it myself now, but I know this is going to air a little bit later. Yes. So Pyth Pro is incredibly exciting. We launched it 2 months ago. I think we were talking about it the previous conversation. Just as a recap, so Pyth has been the Oracle for most blockchain applications on about over 100 chains. There's 700 applications. They really rely on Pyth being able to sign and cryptographically prove that the data is authentic. We needed to create Pyth data because it's not possible to buy NASDAQ data, for example, and bring it to the blockchain. There's all sorts of legal problems with that. And so that was one of the reasons why Pyth was created. Turns out that we've been able to amass one of the largest data sets in the world and continues to get bigger every single month. And so that's what we call Pyth Pro. And so we just started to commercialize Pyth Pro 2 months ago. And within the first month, we have seen over 1 million ARR. Within the first month, we've gotten no less than 8 to 10 inbound from institutions per week. And we're currently now today at around 80 active API subscribers. The prices range from free to crypto builders to $10,000 per month for enterprise users. And we think that the data is transformational in that it's more complete because it aggregates together all these different sources. It has the widest cross-asset catalog available. And remarkably, it's about 10 times cheaper than the nearest kind of enterprise solution out there. So that's been incredible. I'm certainly overwhelmed with the success of the rollout, the initial rollout of Pyth Pro. And what we're announcing is the PYTH Reserve. So for a long time, people were wondering, what are the economics of Pyth Network? Obviously, we know that there's a staking element to it. And so publishers have to stake Pyth tokens. You know, that removes some of the tokens from the market. But what does this do? The Pyth Reserve means that revenues earned from selling these Pyth Pro subscriptions, they flow into the DAO, and then the DAO goes in the open market and buys Pyth tokens, and then those are taken off the market and go into the reserve. And so that's actually currently live today, just got voted in earlier this week on the DAO, and we're excited to see that going forward. So in the future, mental model should be the more data that Pyth sells to subscribers, the more Pyth tokens that the DAO actually buys off the market.
Why do you think data transparency is so important? Why is it core to how crypto markets function?
Well, if you think about the paradox of market data, your average person, if you talk to them about market data, they'll say it's the least interesting thing. All the world's data is available. I just go to TradingView and it's all pretty good. And if you talk to a trader from Jane Street and you say that you're, working in market data, say, It's impossible. It's a monopoly. You'll never be able to break in. And so how is it that these two worlds can coexist? And the answer to that is data quality. So if you're relying on TradingView data if you're relying on it for just kind of general news, it's fine, right? This is generally delayed some period of time, 5 to 15 minutes. It's going to be from a myriad of sources. But if you're just using it for general information, it's no problem. If you're using this for being able to mark collateral, transact trades, send something of value, any of these things where you need updated precision prices and you're not going to be susceptible to some arbitrage opportunity for, someone to kind of rip you off because there's asymmetry of information, that's where the value is. So that's why we think it's so important not only to provide this, but now to start to articulate that to people, because the price is not the price, right? It's highly distinguished between the amount of quality that you have in a price versus something that doesn't really hold its value.
We saw that on October 10th, right?
Absolutely. So on October 10th, we had Binance was using their internal USDE price, and it depegged massively, caused a watershed of liquidations that were highly contested, created a tremendous amount of backlash for Binance. They've since updated. They actually started ingesting Pyth data as well. The counterpoint of that was Aave was using a hard pegged $1 USDE price. Actually, it was hard pegged to the USDC price. And that never depegged at all, but it wasn't accurate either. The Pyth price actually performed quite well because we had a lot of inputs. And so we traded around or priced it around 97 cents, which was a small discount and probably, representative of the entire market. And that's what our objective is. We want to be as representative of the entire market as we possibly can. Obviously the more data sources we get in, and we usually add more data sources every single month.
And what are those sources?
So the sources is two main participants in the network. So large trading firms and exchanges. And, those are the participants of financial markets. So first principles definition of market data is the price where a trader wants to trade and the price where traders have just traded. Now, historically, you would only ever get market data from exchanges because mapping together the complexity of all the trading firms in the world was never really possible. And so that's what Pyth stood on the shoulders of blockchains to be able to come and do. And what's nice about it is we get to go cross asset, we get to go cross geography. And those are places where exchanges fail, right? Exchanges are usually limited to a specific geography and limited to a specific asset class. But by connecting to trading firms and having them effectively report trades that they've executed almost as a repository to a blockchain that then aggregates those together so they're not exposed to somebody following their particular trades. They're one of many inputs. As well as ingesting information from the exchanges themselves, we have a very high sample set, a global sample set for all these different asset classes. And that's really the superpower. That allows Pyth to be able to nimbly expand to different asset classes very easily. And it's not something that you can do if you were to go through the existing economic supply chain of data. If you wanted to be Bloomberg, or if you are using Bloomberg, for example, generally what happens is you pay about $30,000 per year per person per terminal. And then you want, premium data, that's an extra package. And with Pyth, it's, our ethos is to try and be more like Spotify. We view this as, you're an enterprise, you pay $10,000 a month, but we keep increasing the amount of data that you can consume, just like Spotify always has more music. And so, that's our goal. We want to get the price of everything. We want to make it available everywhere. It's the tagline. And we're well along our way to doing that.
I was waiting for the B words to come up. Last time you were on Real Vision, we had this cool announcement that the US GDP growth update would be published on blockchain and on Pyth Network. What's happened since then? What do you foresee happening next when it comes to the relationship with government and their data?
Yeah, the government has, I think, since our previous conversation, or maybe during it, had a big shutdown that exposed even more problems with the data apparatus that they currently use and have. So we continue to work with them to be able to streamline that and make it so that the data is available, it's trustworthy, there's transparency, there's more availability of sources. The most practical way that we're working with them today is by continuously adding more and more data sets to the blockchain. So those can be usable in the way that they first made, like the GDP, or what we then later added on, which was the non-farm payrolls and the CPIs available. The other area within government where we're spending a whole lot of time is with the SEC. And so the SEC has had, obviously almost a 180 tone in a year.
That's an understatement.
Yeah. And Chair Atkins has really endorsed two things. So he's endorsed simplification of regulation, as well as leveraging of the best technology that's possibly available, notwithstanding crypto or blockchain. And that's where we think we fit in really well. There are certain limitations to the apparatus that you have today around market data. So there's rules where, for example, retail brokers have to show this thing called the MBBO or the SIP feed. That's only available during market hours. It's not available 24/5. Pyth data is already available 24/5, partly due to the fact that one of the publishers is an ATS called Blue Ocean, and they are the bulk majority of the overnight trading. I think over 95% of the volume trades there, in addition to these large trading firms, the Virtus and Jane Streets and Jumps, that are contributors. So Pyth fills a bunch of gaps where the SIP is currently not covering. And the SEC is really engaged in finding potential solutions for that. And so that's the area that we're kind of currently focused on.
I'm sure PYTH Reserve is top of your mind right now, naturally, and you just had Pyth Pro. But what's the next thing that you're thinking about for Pyth?
So I think we're in a really nice spot with Pyth Pro because it's a very clear roadmap on how we can get to what I think is going to be our 5-year vision, which is going to be a really comprehensive data suite where you were able to cover every asset class. We've got hundreds of thousands of instruments and symbols. We've gone beyond just pricing information to be able to carry other catalogs of information. For super premium data, we expect to be a distribution partner for people on blockchains. So look, I think that there's a good argument that Pyth could be a superset of even what Bloomberg and NASDAQ currently provide to the world. Certainly not to their existing client bases in the same ways. But I think that there's a large parts of the world where they're underserved. And I think that Pyth is going to be the gateway for these people to get access to high quality data. So I think we're unlocking areas where there's, new hedge funds or new retail brokers or new types of asset classes that are covered by institutions that they weren't able to get before because of these various barriers to entry. And I think that it's going to be the largest global network for data in the world. We're very focused on increasing the participation from more regulated entities. We're working with a lot of the banks, and we're very close to being able to announce some of those banks. Very excited about that. They'll both be consumers and users of Pyth data. So I think that the trajectory is continue to scale it, right? Scale this thing until it is much bigger than Bloomberg. I saw that Netflix just bought Warner Brothers. And I think that's a good inspiration. At one day, wouldn't it be cool if Pyth could potentially buy Bloomberg?
Oh.
And of course that's, not going to happen in the short term, but why not,
Yeah. The things we've seen in crypto, right?
Yeah.
Nothing is impossible. It sounds like you're quite blockchain neutral, but obviously we're here at Breakpoint. Solana is front and center here. So what do you find appealing about Solana specifically?
Well, we got our start in Solana. So, PythNet was a blockchain application, a Solana application. So in the very first iteration, about 4 years ago, Pyth was an on-chain program on Solana. Publishers published directly there. It aggregated, and all of the data was, made available on Solana. We ended up being about 70% of the block space for the first 8 months. And it was only when that block space became more expensive because there are now other applications that are competing for it, as well as some of the reliability when we wanted to go cross-chain, where we needed to migrate off. So we actually migrated to something called PythNet, which is a fork of Solana, with some modifications. So basically based on the exact same code base, but, it's fit to our needs because we didn't need to have we didn't have general purpose runtime or anything like that.
And sounds like it was amicable, given that you're here.
Yeah, exactly. But then we connected we connected the bio wormhole to Solana. So we basically just served it in a much more efficient way. And then we've kind of upgraded to an even newer version that's not based on Solana anymore. It's PythNet v2. But that's just a more refined version, right? Like it's, you're gradually cutting off the components that make you less efficient, right? Like it's like building a race car. But Pyth today still serves the bulk majority of applications built on Solana. It's over 90% of the applications, in the Solana ecosystem are using Pyth in some way.
Looking more broadly, what makes you excited about crypto in 2026?
Well, it seems like we've gone from this, that Gartner hype cycle where, everything was like this speculation. People were throwing a lot of stuff against the wall and, there was this narrative. And then we went through that period of expectations don't meet reality. And we've gone into a period now where I think we're starting to see everything build from a revenue perspective. So it very closely mirrors what we saw with the internet, bubble, right? Like back in the early 2000s, people like to joke that pets.com was like the thing that no one would ever use. But the reality is Amazon is where majority of people will buy their pet food. So I think we're going through that phase now. I'm excited because we are starting to get real economic value, on chain to justify the valuations, that we've seen. I still think that, this is going to be transformational technology and we're going to have unlocked things that we hadn't anticipated, like in the analog of the internet, we're still in like the pre-mobile phase. But I think it'll grow very quickly. And the fact that most of these institutions are now like getting involved and plugging in and not feeling like they're isolated or they can't participate, means that I think it'll accelerate much quicker. So that's what excites me. I think that we're beyond those periods of who knows what it's going to be for. I think we know what it's going to be for. It's going to be for, doing more efficient finance globally. And I think a lot of the infrastructure and tools are out there and they just need to continue to be refined and they need to continue to scale.
Brilliant. Mike Cahill, CEO of Douro Labs, developers of Pyth Network. Thank you for joining us on Real Vision at Breakpoint.
Thanks so much, Arthur. Great to be here.
So you obviously like this video enough that you've got to the end. That's quite a big task. But listen, do me a favor, hit the like and subscribe button and also check out what video's next because I think you'll love it. But if you want even more, and when I'm talking more, I'm talking about member generated ideas, incredible alpha, research, everything there to help you in your journey, just head to realvision.com/join for the best financial intelligence out there and the pure alpha that's within the platform.